this, episode 244 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest Mark Wolf, BSC, DP of Lord of the Flies. Enjoy.
I was reading up on you. Did you start as a documentary, like a nature cameraman?
I did a long time ago. I used to work for the BBC as a wildlife cameraman. So I did series like The Blue Planet and Planet Earth, lots of other things.
I got those on Blu-ray.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Blue Planet is a classic, isn't it? That was I stopped that in about 2003, probably.
And what made you able to pivot from? Because I'm asking purely out of selfishness, because I'm, a documentary filmmaker or DP who wants to squirt my way to narrative.
Yeah. I mean, you say able, it was a very difficult, because obviously, as you know, you get kind of pigeonholed into whatever you do. So people would think, I can film animals, but I couldn't possibly make a film about people. How can you do that? But, I've had a stills camera in my hand since I was literally about 6 years old. So to me, it doesn't matter what's in front of me. You still frame it, with your own sensibilities and, the way you look at things. It doesn't matter what you're filming. But anyway, so it was a long road to sort of change from, because also I would sort of specialize in underwater filming.
Oh, wow.
So kind of, I went from filming underwater, wildlife to drama, did a lot of underwater drama. And then that became very repetitive. It's like endless tank, it would all be in a tank generally. Car ditching, two people drowning, a plane ditching, someone falling into the water. And all these movies would come through and I think, God, I want to be on the whole movie. I don't just want to be doing these 2 or 3 days,
Right.
And also partly the reason why I changed into drama side, because I've always thought the real craft of being a cinematographer is in lighting. And that's really where, I mean, I started off as a photographer and I was photographing people, and then I sort of slid into wildlife filming. So it's, then I started shooting music videos, and I did this one music video of a band called Keen, and we were shooting in, like a rainy, horrible night in London in Old Street, which is not a very nice area. It was like down an alleyway, and I was lighting it. And I thought, at one point, God, I'm getting as much satisfaction out of this as I am going, going to the Arctic or Amazon or the Congo. I mean, those are amazing trips, but the kind of satisfaction and fulfillment I got was from that really sort of kept me going. But it took me a long time to kind of break out of, or to get into drama, I guess.
Were there certain key people who helped you get there? I know
Well, key people who didn't really care whether I was a wildlife cameraman or, to them it didn't. And you sort of get breaks into the next level, and then you eventually get a break up into the next level. And then, as you know, it kind of goes on from there. You just have to, well, for me, I just had to stick it out and keep going. Yeah.
It is interesting how, part of my sort of not job, but I guess hobby is film education. And you'll get so many students coming out of film school, 2 years later going I think I need to quit. I haven't gotten a job yet. No one wants to hire me. I've got my degree. What the hell? And you're brother, you need to buckle in, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's a long ball. Yeah. I mean, it's different now in one way, because you can, when I started, everything was shot on film, and it was very difficult to, the expense of shooting something on film compared to today. You can, pick up any DSLR and make stuff look amazing. So it's a lot more accessible. Yeah. And I don't know, I wonder if that's changed people's perception of how they think they can progress into the industry.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've noticed is that the idea of, because I went to college right before the Red One came out, right? So we were still vaguely shooting film, a lot of mini DV, but you weren't gonna
Yeah.
You know, even they had to shoot Clerks on film. They were not going to shoot Clerks on DV or whatever. But the reason I became a DP was because I was like, oh, there's like an expertise here that you can be hired on. And now, you know, there's a whole cottage industry of YouTubers teaching people how to use a camera. So that expertise is kind of, so I would assume that's kind of the issue now is you're not, people hit you with, you know, you shoot a commercial and they're like, oh, my nephew could do that. And you're like, they couldn't, but thanks.
Yeah. And also, I guess you get a million people on YouTube telling you how you can do things. I don't know, everything is so much more accessible, I guess. I mean, when I started as a runner, and then I started as a clapper loader and then a focus puller. I tried to get into film school, but I didn't get accepted. So then I just carried on going, you know, on the kind of the long path through the industry, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I've spoken to other British cinematographers, obviously, but there does seem to be kind of a interesting way in which the BBC has fostered filmmaking. We don't really have that in America.
Right.
Like when you're like, oh, I used to shoot for BBC, like we don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even now, you know, with Lord of the Flies, you're going to that. I mean, it was made by the BBC, but then sold to Netflix, you know?
Yeah. Things are very different now, though. I think because when I started edging into documentary filmmaking, and I think I was one of the last group of cameramen that would shoot on film and then on sort of more observational documentaries where you spend, you know, a long time just observing. And then the what was it? The PD-150. Do you remember that camera?
Mm-hmm. The Sony.
And then all of a sudden the game changed. So they were giving PD-150s to like assistant directors, and they would go and shoot all the stuff that the cameraman sound team, you know, would go off and shoot for weeks on end. And I kind of saw that. I really saw that happening, and I thought, I've got to get out of this now because otherwise I'm never gonna, you know, I'll be stuck. I'll be like a fossil, you know, or whatever. Yeah, kind of stuck in the old ways. And and then they would get a cameraman and a sound team in, like a proper cameraman and sound team in for like 4 or 5 days to make things look nice, and then somebody else would shoot everything else. So for me that was a big kind of game changer when that camera came out. I guess it was the point where every camera or cameras became accessible. You could shoot, you know, you could get good images. Didn't need to worry necessarily about exposing. You weren't given that big responsibility of having 400-foot film, and which costs 150 pounds to buy and another 200 pounds to process.
Yeah, it is.
On the wildlife documentaries I did, I used to be given 150 rolls of film and just sent away for 4 months, and come back hopefully with 150 rolls. Correctly exposed film.
Right. And then you're like, here's 70?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I hope it's all still there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope it's all not fog.
I hope it's in focus. Yeah. Well, now you've got, like, what'd you shoot flies on? Venice 2?
That was on the Venice 2, yeah. Venice 2 and the infrared stuff was shot on the Red Epic. Only because it was easy to convert to infrared. Yeah. But most of it was Venice 2.
I was just going to say, now we've got that, and you've got to do the opposite of like the PD camera, you know, where you're like, oh, how can we make this more cinematic now with these new cameras? You're like, how can I like less? I need less. Like, make it exactly. Worse.
Yeah. That's the, that's always the thing, isn't it? To make it less digital, I guess.
Yeah. It is. What were you using? There's a lot of like Petsfall looking stuff. It seemed. I was using. So I used to shoot a lot of large format still, 10:8 plate photography, and I loved that kind of out of focus swirly thing. And I've always tried to find that. And I did have a Petsfall lens that I adapted, but it was just such a big clunky thing, really hard to use. So I've been looking for like smaller
cine lenses, I guess, that would create that effect. And then I just came across these DZO Parvo anamorphics.
Yeah.
And they actually give that, some of the 24mm and the 50mm in particular give that look. And I thought, wow, and also that look is very prevalent when you're shooting foliage. So I thought this is like an ideal lens to use in that situation.
That's such an excellent point. I didn't necessarily think about that, but whenever you see lens tests, they're always like up at a tree, because that's the one thing that will really show you the bokeh of everything.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in a like a house with walls, it doesn't really show that up very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I was really happy to find those lenses. And also because a lot of it was handheld, I needed a light lens, and anamorphics obviously are heavy, and also needed a fast lens, and they happen to be fast as well. So it was like the perfect combination for that project.
It kind of insane how excellent these random lens companies have become. Like out of nowhere, we're just getting tons of anamorphic options, tons of really good cine primes that are very inexpensive.
I mean, I feel like now like when I start a new project, I feel like there's an overload of lenses now. Like, what do I do? What do I choose? There's so many millions of different types now.
Yeah.
And they're all changing to digital, less digital, which is quite amazing with most of them are. Yeah.
It's funny to me how like I feel as if so many people are kind of we'll see Panavision as like the ultimate lens, like the C series or whatever. And yet all these new anamorphic companies, like I've got a set of the Nanomorph LFs, which are pretty small, cover full frame, but they're quite perfect. It's like anamorphic. It's like it is anamorphic, but it is very clean. And it's like no one's tried to steal Panavision's shine yet.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of snobbery about lenses as well. Like if I tell people I'm shooting on these DZO lenses and they kind of think they don't really kind of take them seriously because they're not expensive. You can buy a set of them for like £20,000, which is a lot, but nothing compared
not for a
to
full set.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you go through a lot of tests before you landed on that set? Because that is interesting that you went with like a prosumer lens set on a Venice,
I did consider a lot of different things, but once I saw that sort of look, I was kind of sold on them. And the fact and the practical reasons that they were light and they were fast. And also another one, they like close focus is like 1 point something feet. So everything was, and we were doing long takes. So we weren't able to kind of, shoot everything with one lens and then choose another or put diopters on or whatever. That wasn't going to be an option. We were going from like far, I don't know, say 20 feet away from the subject up to a close up. So we needed that sort of flexibility in, close focus, or that we needed a small focus distance. So, yeah.
Well, and what, cause you had, they say like, oh, don't work with animals and kids. And then you were like, how about 7,500 kids?
Animals as well.
Yeah. And, but because of that, they can only work a few, what was it, 3 hours, and then for a certain age group, and then 6 for another age group?
I think we had 5 hours. I don't know the exact, I think it was roughly 5 hours, but they were having to, they were being schooled at the same time, so they had to have a very strict rota on who could be on set at what time, because they had their chaperones taking them off to be schooled.
Right. What was the
4 days of shooting in terms of, we never actually got a full 10-hour day of shooting with the kids.
Well, and they can't work at night, right?
Yeah, then they can't work at night. So that was another reason for shooting infrared as well. Is that first of all, we shot on all these very small islands, which were about an hour away from land. So number one, we weren't allowed to travel at night on the sea with the kids. Number two, the kids could only work up until 11 o'clock. at night, and it got dark at around 6. So that would give us 5 hours of shooting with them, which is not enough at night. So there are all those practical considerations as well.
How does that affect the way you feel? Because like in my head, I'm just imagining like, all right, assume that it wasn't kids, it was just the schedule necessitated that you had to do it that way. Was that a blessing, or obviously it was a bit of a curse because you can't, it's going to make the shoot longer. But aside from that, like how did that in any way make things better or easier for you, or was it all kind of a slog?
I wouldn't say it was a slog. I think you just have to adapt to being with the kids and what they can do rather than, I mean, I guess in one way it made things a bit more relaxed because you couldn't push them like, well, not that you push actors, but you work up until the very last second, don't you?
Yeah.
So there was a bit of that. And you just, just as kids, you can't, they're only, like the oldest was only 12 years old. You can't really be too harsh on them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And also, I guess, you as a film crew can't, there's no Fraturdays or 12-hour, 14-hour overtimes. You're like done at
exactly.
6.
Yeah. I mean, it was really, really heavy, very, very hot and incredibly humid. So I think we were all, every day was kind of exhausting in that sense. And being in the forest, the terrain was really steep a lot of the time and very rocky. So, we were quite happy to have short days.
Yeah.
I mean, we did actually shoot most of the day because we ended up shooting, we called it coconut time because we ended up shooting things like coconuts or strange looking bits of rock or insects, to fulfill those hours. So yeah, I think that was a good, because often on a film, all that sort of peripheral detail stuff, you have all these ideas of stuff you want to shoot, but that goes out the window because you've got 5 minutes at the end of the day to do something, which isn't enough time. But this was almost the kind of reverse of that. We had so much time to do, all those interesting little cutaways and details.
Yeah. I'm stealing coconut time. I don't know. That tickles me.
Yeah.
All right, coconut time. Let's go.
It's a bit ridiculous. Like a whole crew of like 30 or 40 people standing around watching you film coconuts, literally.
I did want to talk about the infrared stuff a little bit because that it doesn't when I first read like, oh, they did this day for night infrared stuff, I was imagining something a lot more affected, and then you watch it in the show and it is relatively naturalistic. It's not like they don't have glowing eyes or anything like that. What was the process for shooting, for testing? First of all, how did you come to that? But also like how are you processing that film to make it look not ridiculous?
Yeah. I mean, I guess number one, the reason why I thought shooting infrared was logistically, there's a lot of scenes where kids are running through the forest, quite big distances. How do you light a forest at nighttime? You can only really light it in patches.
Sure.
How do you run through a forest for ages and ages? You just can't do that. How do you light a forest at night when the island is an hour away? At the time, we didn't actually know we could not film with the kids at night past 11 o'clock. So we did have plans to shoot at night. And then as we learned about the restrictions, it became obvious we couldn't shoot at night. So then, I'd watched films like Nope, which had some great infrared stuff. And they used a combination of RGB and infrared images and overlaid them. And Mark kind of liked the idea of, I suppose we were pushed into shooting day for night.
Right.
And mine big thing was that, it's never going to look like night. So I kept telling everybody, it's not going to look like night. It's some kind of representation of night. Not going to look like night. And I think people kind of accepted that. And then 11 films gave me quite a good budget to do some research. So I went to Germany to test various rigs, like they were actually 3D rigs which would overlay an RGB image with an infrared image, kind of like what Nope did. And they had these really small rigs. I can't remember the cameras. The cameras were like cube, little cubes. But anyway, it looked great, but it was very sort of technically finicky. We thought we can't take this to a remote island. It's going to, be disastrous. So that is actually really worth exploring more because I think that could look amazing. But anyway, and kind of at the time, Mark was showing me these references of a photographer called Richard Moss, who had gone to Africa and shot child soldiers in Africa, and all the foliage was red, but they still had their skin tones and their eyes didn't look weird like infrared usually makes eyes. And I thought, there must be like a post thing that he created all that effect in Photoshop. But in fact, it wasn't. What he had been using was a Kodak film called Aerochrome, which was an film which created that. I think it was made for some kind of industrial use. So he had shot those stills on this film. So then I thought, oh wow, that's amazing. But we couldn't use that film, obviously. And then I found out how to create that effect digitally in camera. So it's not a post effect. So it made all foliage red, but it retained the skin tones. The eyes looked kind of normal. The skies did darken a little bit. But it still wasn't night. It still didn't look like night. It looked like a weird sort of hallucinatory kind of thing. And it kind of fits with the story because, the Lord of the Flies there's nothing, you got 30 odd children that have crashed into an island in a plane and not a single one of them has come out with a bruise or anything.
Yeah.
It's all sort of magical realism, I guess. So I think the kind of infrared, this particular infrared day for night look kind of went along with the feeling of the film. And my daughter watched Lord of the Flies with me. She's 11 and she didn't know anything technically, but she just said to me, God, when the foliage goes red, I know there's some danger coming. So that was kind of, if it evoked that feeling in her, then it meant it had some, kind of worked in that way.
That's cool.
But no, yeah. I mean, there were a lot of it's really hard to create that day for night look when you're on a beach in full sunshine with a particularly a sky that's cloudy and sand that's white. A lot of those skies are sky replacements. Yeah.
Are you keeping it close to the chest, or how did you get that in camera then? With that the aerochrome kind of look.
I found we converted a red epic to infrared, which is easy.
Right.
And anybody can do that. And then I found this filter. It's like a blue filter, which creates that. What it does, I've no idea technically how it does it, but it retains the skin tones and it changes all the foliage red. But it also does really weird things. Like if there's anything black in the scene, that generally turns to kind of maroon color. Has very unpredictable effects on colors that we did a lot of kind of makeup testing for, because obviously the makeup was quite a heavy, there's a lot of makeup applied. Yeah.
That reminds me, there was a production company over here that sadly just went out of business, or it was a rental house, but they sadly went out of business recently. But we were doing a lot of YouTube videos testing cameras and stuff. And we were testing the Pocket 6K from Blackmagic, and we were testing ND filters. Yeah. And there was this one super heavy ND filter that had really bad IR pollution.
Yeah.
And I was wearing a black, this is all just coming back to me now that you've said that. I was wearing a black sort of cotton overshirt and standing in front of some greens, like a wall of ivy, and everything went purple.
Yeah, yeah.
And this wasn't even a converted camera. This was just a bad ND filter at 2.8 or whatever the really high strength ND was.
Yeah, I remember when the first Arri Electors came out, they had that. When you went to a 1.2 ND, that would happen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's damn, I got to find that video again and be like, hey, you want to do Lord of the Flies on a budget? Here's, get this really terrible ND filter. That's fun. I was watching that, you know, it's so one of the reasons why I started this show was because of the lack of special features now. No one's really buying DVDs or Blu-ray. Actually, it's coming back. People are now, but there was a big long time where no one was buying Blu-rays or DVDs, and therefore they weren't making supplementary materials. But luckily, you guys got this whole hour-long
well, that was
ETS doc.
Mark Munder's wife was with us, and she's a documentary filmmaker, so she was with us the whole time. Yeah.
So it must have been his idea to be like, hey, this is going to be good. You should film this.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think she made it on spec. I don't think it had been commissioned or anything. She just said, I'd like to tweak this. And then I think subsequently I think subsequently the BBC funded it. So yeah, she was there.
Well, it's such a treat to watch. But one thing I noticed, you know, obviously you film outdoors, you know, you don't have a Marvel budget. So, you know, you're funded, but not, you know, I was expecting to see no lights, but you even did have like a few, like that 2400B seemed to be doing a lot of work just everywhere.
We had, that was mainly for the lightning effect, actually. So we created a lightning effect. With those, pretty much. I mean, there's very little. I mean, there was very little few lighting units, but that was all for those sort of light scenes, which took place. Yeah.
There wasn't even really, at least as far as I saw it, there wasn't like, you didn't even go like full grip jungle on it. You kind of were just working with what you had in the time and stuff.
I mean, I used a lot of textiles, silks and stuff, and blacks, a lot of negative. Yeah. And we had these amazing grips that would like just climb these trees and put, 20 buys up in the trees, like no effort whatsoever, like monkeys, really. I mean, you could never get away with that kind of thing in shooting in England.
Right. Here either.
Yeah. Everything's, So I used a lot of that. And, we had a lot of fire as well. We had a lot of real fire.
Yeah.
Which was really good. I mean, and that was enhanced in VFX, but. Yeah.
Everyone does like nighttime differently. And it's really fascinating to see that. But there's kind of a lot of options there. Fire is one of those things that I don't think there is a single fake light that makes fire look or fake fire look realistic.
Yeah. I mean, if you can use real fire, it just looks incredible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you say.
It's real tungsten, but in a pit.
Yeah. Physically real, yeah. Yeah, so we used a lot of that. Just lots of textiles, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it shows what you can do with relatively affordable, fabric's fabric. Yeah. But the show looks incredible. And, I think that's that. Did that become fun? Because I know earlier you were saying like, oh, I really wanted to get into lighting. And here you are having a show where you're not really lighting anything, but you are shaping light.
Yeah, shaping. I mean, yeah. And I guess it's also where you choose to. You can say there's no lighting going on, which is true, but it's where you choose to put the subjects and where you choose to put the camera relative to the source. So, I had a part of my sort of plan was I didn't want things to look too kind of shaped and beautiful at times. I wanted to feel they were in this harsh sunshine, and I wanted to feel uncomfortable and they were like squinting rather than, beautiful softness. And in fact, all those, there's lots of portraits of the kids in the film. My idea was to have them looking up, squinting into the sun and feeling really uncomfortable. And I gave my gaffer is also on the show. He's also a BOP. So he went off and shot lets, but he shot them with really lovely soft light. So they weren't doing that horrible squinting thing. But anyway, I was fine. But it was just amusing. He couldn't resist. He didn't have it in him to make it look ugly.
Right. He was like, can I have some options? No.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. Anyway, he's a great guy, so I'm really pleased how he did it, how he did them.
It is funny, you know, I was thinking about it. Oftentimes, as a DP, you have to shave the light in a certain way for older actors and actresses, and, you know, not necessarily, I mean, so depending on the project, it is literally just make them as pretty as possible. But then other times it's like, you know, doing your friend a favor more than anything. Like, hey, we're not going to, you don't need to look terrible, but let's, you know. And I imagine with kids, it's almost the opposite, where you're like, you're too smooth. I can't, we can't get anything. There's no shape here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they look too good. Yeah, I think that a lot where you have, I mean, there's one actor on the show that I'm doing at the moment. He's got this most incredible face, and whatever lighting he's in, he just looks amazing. So it's such a relief to have him in the frame. So I just think, this is just going to look good, whatever we do to him, good. Yeah.
It is, you know, go ahead. I was just going to say, you know, we talk about production design a lot, you know, how that's like really, when people get awards for cinematography, a lot of times it's really the production design.
Yeah.
But the actors, there's certain actors that just take light and just look really impressive on camera, and you're like, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, often I like frame up and light a stand in and kind of think, oh, this looks all right. It's not too bad. It's kind of acceptable. And then the real thing turns up and it's just like, wow, it's just come alive. Yeah. I mean, it's like Jodie Comer was like that when I did Help with Mark. She's just got these film style looks and just looks incredible. And you line up on a poor stand-in and you kind of think, it's all right. And she turns up and just blows you away. Yeah.
That's another thing, not to harp too much on actors, but there's also like, you see like some super famous, you know, Tom Cruise type or Angelina Jolie type. And then you see him in person and you're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
that is a different looking person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They have an indefinable thing, don't they? Which is being photogenic, whatever that is.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a study done. That I did want to ask about, because obviously there's Lord of the Flies, very famous book. You know, were there any references for the show, or I guess it's a show, that you were trying to touch on visually, or were you trying to make it its own thing? You know, it's such a well-known property that, like, I imagine there was a bit of discussion about, like, do we make this rhyme with something else? Do we make it our own thing?
Yeah.
Or, you know?
I mean, we did talk about lots of references. The one major one for me was a film, Nick Rogue's film Walkabout. It wasn't necessarily the visual references. It was just I don't know. Have you seen Walkabout?
I haven't, no.
It's about a brother and a sister who they go out. It's very weird. They're out driving in the desert. Nobody knows really why. And then the father shoots himself. So you got these two kids. It's all set in the outback of Australia. So you've got these two kids that are just left alone in the desert, and they have to fend for themselves. And it's the kind of the environment and all the things that they come across, and all these weird things happen. In a sense, they're not weird, but they're weird because they're being seen through the children's eyes who don't know what they're looking at. So the feelings that film evoked were very much what we had in our minds, or I had in my mind.
Yeah. Just
that sense of unease and kind of looking at things through innocent eyes, through children's eyes. And just not everything is always explained. There are things that, you know, why is that person doing that thing, or why are we looking at that, or what is that we're looking at? So I guess that was the main kind of visual, I mean, maybe not even visual reference. As I said, that was the main sort of feel for the film. I mean, I often have loads of references, and by the time I come to shoot, I did not thinking about them at all. I'm not referencing in my head at all. Often it's just like a feeling that you get from a picture.
I've actually mentioned that before, that something that I've learned is you like really study either your references or the stuff that you and whoever were talking about when you want to make the thing, and then you like store it and then go shoot. Because like if you keep going back to it, you're just going to copy. But the further away you get from it, the more you kind of like create it in your brain. Yeah,
exactly. You make your own kind of style, don't you?
Yeah. Because if you're sitting there with shot deck, you're like, that's terrible.
Yeah. I guess everything is derived from something else, isn't it? There's nothing that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Nothing seems purely on its own, stand on its own. It's always a reference to something else that's gone on in history or whatever. It's all in.
And also, anyone who says that they created a wholly unique idea is full of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah.
No, you're right. You never, you were born today and just came up with an idea.
Yeah. I mean, also there's so many inspirations in the location that it's like, you got to be looking at what's there, really, what's in front. All you need is to see what's in front of you and choose what you like and you think is appropriate to shoot. It's so rich, such a rich environment that, you don't need to be thinking about much else really other than where you are.
Yeah. You and Mark have worked together before, famously. Have you guys developed kind of like a shorthand working together? Like, is there, because you started working with a director and the first project or two, there's a lot of explaining things to each other. And then I'm lucky, like the main director that I work with is my friend from college.
Right.
And so we don't, that we can yell at each other and know that it's friendly. Yeah. And also all of our touch points are exactly the same, it's very quick. Do you have that with him? And how does that manifest?
It's we have very similar sort of tastes in visuals that we like. I think we have similar approaches to things, and we kind of like to observe reality or what's happening in front of us and then maybe mold it with our own thoughts and ideas. Maybe not be too, I don't like to be too sort of prescriptive with actors about where they should be. Quite like to give them flexibility. I think he's a has similar ideas that way. And also we both kind of like we don't really like things that are too obvious. We both kind of like weird, strange occurrences. And I mean, Mark is always obsessed with things not being sort of conventional. He goes to big efforts to make things not. He hates it when you think he's seen that before somewhere, or just repeating something that's gone on before, which is quite interesting because pretty much every film he does is a very specific look, and it's not just a kind of continuation of a previous film.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't want anything that that's almost kind of. I wonder if that kind of makes it easy for him, because if you're like, I don't want to have. If you've seen a lot of something, and not to do that, that almost makes your choice for you.
Yeah,
those decisions are gone. You're like, just don't do that.
Yeah. He goes to great lengths, and I think often you're sort of thinking, why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? And then eventually you sort of realize that it is actually, it is very clever what he is doing. And he gets kind of really obsessed by certain things. And I mean, I guess he sees things in a very particular way. It's hard for me to describe exactly, specifics. But we definitely do have a shorthand. I think we can definitely, I mean, I know what he likes. I guess, my job is to kind of service his wishes, really, and hopefully put all the mine in the mix along the way. So I've got a good idea of what he likes and what he doesn't like, and how he likes to do things, how he doesn't like to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you remember a time maybe early on where it was pretty apparent, okay, don't do that again. That's not him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of directors are like I remember I used to work with Nick Broomfield. You know Nick Broomfield? He's like a
I don't think
quite
so.
well-known English documentary filmmaker.
Hmm.
And I made a couple of feature films with him, and he would say, like, he didn't want anything, a bit like Mark in a way, he didn't want anything sort of preemptive. So I could never like plan what I wanted to do in the frame. It just happened. I had to do it sort of first take, as it were. I think Mark is kind of like that. He doesn't like to be, he likes things to be done quite spontaneously. And I quite enjoy kind of doing a first take with not knowing what I'm doing and just sort of finding what happens in the shot. I really enjoy that. I guess because I'm kind of used to that, shooting lots of observational documentaries where you haven't a clue what's going on. You just sort of follow the action and try and shoot it in a kind of flowing way and link people and link their dialogue. So yeah, I guess and we shot quite a lot of Lord of the Flies. The big scenes in Lord of the Flies we shot in a very observational way, because we started shooting in a more conventional way, and it just wouldn't work with the kids because they couldn't really repeat the same thing they were doing. So you couldn't sort of shoot from that angle and repeat the same action from that angle. So we ditched that idea very quickly and just shot. Just that we sort of stood back on longer lenses and just let them kind of do their thing. Yeah, so those first few scenes were quite painful trying to figure that out. But luckily we did.
Did I read this correctly that those were all like first time actors? I mean, they're young, so probably, but
I think, I mean, it's definitely all, yeah, I mean, 90% of them. Like David, who played Piggy, had done a lot of acting.
I would hope so, because that kid's good.
He is incredible. Yeah, he's going to be a star. He really is incredible. He's such a great actor, I think.
Yeah.
And I think they got Locks and, a couple of the other characters had done quite a bit of acting before.
Mm.
But that was another thing, because most of them were quite inexperienced. They wouldn't have any stagecraft. They'd be saying their lines with their backs to the camera, or they'd kind of be hiding behind each other, or, so it took it was a big learning sort of process for them as well, which I think why the first couple of weeks were quite hard, because we were all learning.
They teach them their job.
Well, they were learning we were learning how to shoot them, and they were learning what we kind of wanted from them. So, yeah. But they were actually amazing. Really, I thought after a week or two, they get bored. I thought the novelty would wear off. It was a hard day for them. They'd have to get up early. There's no they couldn't slack. They had to be where they had to be on time. It was like a proper job. And they really did stick at that for the whole 90 days. I thought that they'd sort of tail off very quickly, but I was really impressed at how they handled that.
Yeah, 90 days is a lot for a big group of kids.
It is a lot, yeah. Yeah.
I guess they're kind of used to it going to school, but that's, honestly, looking back on it, being a child, going to school, the worst part was sitting in a hot classroom. The second you got to go outside, it was great. So I guess, I'm sure they probably looked forward to it.
I mean, they did have an amazing time. Every day we'd be on a boat going to set. They'd get to set, do a bit of work, and then they'd play for a while, have a bit of schooling, a bit more acting. It was a pretty good life for them.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, they go home to the hotel with a swimming pool. So.
Right. Yeah. Did you find yourself relearning anything? Being around anyone of inexperience, a lot of times you're like explaining something, or did you find that?
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess you just have to be very patient. I don't know if I really felt I was relearning stuff. I know what you mean. Like when you're teaching somebody, you realize you kind of, Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't think of any particular. I mean, I remember being sort of quite frustrated and then thinking, hang on a minute, you got to let it go. You can't fight this. You just have to let it go, slow down, and
you relearn Zen.
Yeah, exactly. Relearn Zen. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, was I told you we were going to do this in a very tight under an hour, so I'll let you go here soon. But I did want.
I'm not rushed for time. Is that all fine?
Oh
Yeah.
no, I was just preempting the wrap it up kind of question. But obviously, being in the hot jungle, kind of a pain. Maybe not as much of a pain to only be using fabrics for the most part. But was there any kind of challenge that you weren't expecting beyond like the kids and the jungle? You know, the obvious thing, you read it on paper, you're like, yeah, of course. But
I suppose the whole infrared thing was a challenge, really. And I was definitely had sleepless nights about it, thinking this is just not. I guess my fear was the perception of, you know, the expectations of everybody else, thinking, oh, this is going to look like night. It's definitely didn't look like night. And I kept kind of repeating that. But I still kind of, with me, the jury is still out slightly.
the show's out and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I still think, okay, if I was to do it again, would I do it differently? I think, yeah, very difficult shooting day for night when it's a bright sunny day. When it's cloudy, it's fine. When it's cloudy and you've got enough budget for sky replacements, I think that. I mean, if you look at Note, I spent, this hell of a lot of money in VFX on all that infrared stuff.
And they shot IMAX.
Yeah, and they probably, I don't know, they only had, I don't know how many shots, but it wasn't that many. Yeah.
Well, it was not only that, it was IMAX with the infrared camera on a crane, or not a crane, but you know, it was on like a truck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they shot the RGB infrared overlay thing.
Yeah. With the beam splitter.
Yeah. Which I would love to try and do. And I found there's this German company has like a mini version of that, which is amazing, but it's just technically it's really, you can't really run around with it too much.
Yeah. Well, now you've got, because I bet you could use like 2 Komodos, you know, keep it nice and small.
Yeah, in fact, they were using 2. What was the camera you just mentioned before? The
Komodo?
No, it was before
the Pocket 6K.
Yeah, they were using 2 Pocket 6Ks. One was converted. I think they were 2 Pocket 6Ks. One was RGB and one that they converted to infrared. But the hardest thing is lining up the 2 chips so the images exactly overlay one another.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the hardest thing with any stereo rig, but yeah, and
it has to be pixel perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that is the thing. It has to be so perfect.
I know you're still on the fence, Bob, but I think the night stuff looks cool.
Yeah,
I don't know if cool was your goal, but I think it looks cool.
Yeah, it has it has a, Mark sort of calls it hallucinatory look. I think it has a look that's fitting for Lord of the Flies because it's a crazy story. There's nothing is bedded in reality there. So that kind of gives you the license to go a bit crazy with it. Maybe if you're doing a more conventional thing, people would just, I mean, I'm surprised more people haven't said, what the hell is going on with that red foliage?
Yeah. You know what? I was doing research.
Yeah, there's loads of complaints about the fisheye lens, which is only an 18mm. It's like we shot 3 or 4 shots with this 18mm, and all of a sudden, the whole bloody show is shot with an 18mm lens. It's hilarious.
That's literally what I was going to say. Was doing the research. I was like, people are complaining about the lensing, and exactly what you said. No one. That's how you know it worked, though. Even though you're on the fences, no one cared.
No, nobody realized. Yeah, I mean, that 18mm, there were a couple of shots that were a bit, one shot in particular, which was kind of, you kind of thought, okay, there's a camera behind this shot. It drew your attention to it, but yeah.
It's all right. We'll let that pass on a 4-hour film, you know?
Yeah.
Was it always going to be a miniseries like that, or did it start as a single feature?
I think it was always going to be a 4-part, because Jack, when he wrote the script, split it up into the 4 characters. But I think it was always going to be. I think it was always going to be that.
I do. I prefer like a capsule show like that. I like it.
I always think a 6-part series is 1 or 2 episodes too long. It's just drawn out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it
depends on the show, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my wife is Chinese and she watches these Chinese series that are literally 85 episodes. They're not splitting seasons. They're just one long thing. She loves it. So, yeah.
I can't do that. I like everyone who got into like, although saying that I really did get into like Doctor Who and shit, but the shows that have like 40 Friends and The Office and stuff like that, I'm like, I can't. Like, that's too, I can't keep up with this.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was always 4 episodes.
Well, I think it's a phenomenal show. And before I even watched it, like my girlfriend was like, "Oh, I heard that was amazing." I had a bunch of friends that were like, "Oh, like, you know," I'd tell them who I'm interviewing and stuff. A lot of interest, at least in my friend group. So I think
it's really good.
I think you've done a great job, and at least all my friends are excited. Yeah, I mean,
it's one of the few shows I've worked on where before I've started making it, I've told people I'm doing Lord of the Flies, and they say, "Oh, that's amazing! I'm really interested in watching that." I think it's because everybody has it in their childhood, don't they? Pretty much, as a book they read or know about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, and especially on your schedule. But like I said, it's a great show, and I'm looking forward to your next one. When you do the next one, we'll have you back on.
Yeah, that'll be good. Anytime. It was good. I enjoyed chatting with you. Thank you very much.
You too, man. Take care.
Okay. Yeah. Bye.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.